Hi, I'm Mark from Everything Summer Camp. So the lid and the base of the trunk are separated by this trim. And this is a tongue and groove joint, with the groove being on the bottom of the trunk, or the base, and the tongue being on the lid of the trunk. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace this groove piece on the base of the trunk, but the same instructions could apply to the tongue piece of trim on the lid. So what we'll need to do in order to access this piece of trim to remove it is we'll have to remove a trim bracket. We'll have to loosen these 3 screws on the bottom of this hinge, loosen the 3 screws here, and then remove this trim bracket. Now, of course, if you were going to be replacing the tongue portion of trim on the lid of the trunk, you would be removing the top trim bracket, loosening the top 3 screws of this hinge, same top 3 screws over here on this hinge, and then removing that top trim bracket. So we'll get started by removing this far trim bracket. All we do is remove the 2 screws. We'll want to hang on to those screws and that trim bracket. Just set those off to the side for now. We simply need to loosen these hinge screws. So loosen all 3, maybe a little bit less than halfway. We loosen the 3 screws on the other hinge, and then we remove the second trim bracket completely. Be sure to hang on to those screws and that trim bracket. Just set those off to the side, we'll reattach those later. Okay, so then we remove this second corner clip. We'll set that to the side. And then with a flathead screwdriver, you'll just want to get underneath this groove piece of trim, pry that up, then just work your way down the length of the trunk, prying off the piece of trim. Okay, so next we're going to install the replacement piece of groove trim. And what we want to do is hook the inside of the trim on the inside of the trunk. Fold that over. And this can be a pretty frustrating process. Take your time. Don't be afraid if you need to start over. Just kind of rock that back and forth from the inside to the outside, working your way along the length of the trunk until it's completely down. Okay, so with that new piece of groove trim in place, it's time to replace our corner clips. We'll snap that one into place. And then we'll snap our other corner clip into place. And then we can shut the trunk. Okay, so the trunk was spun back around so that we can get to the back. We're going to put our first trim bracket back on. And then with that trim bracket back in place, we can then move on to tightening those hinges that we loosened up. And of course, if you had to replace the lid piece of trim with the tongue, you'd be tightening the top 6 screws or replacing the top trim bracket. So there's one hinge down. Tighten up our other hinge. And then we'll put that last trim bracket on. This is probably the toughest piece of hardware to attach. Either the groove or the tongue piece of trim. So just remember to stay patient. And there's the last trim bracket, and we're done.